Wholeness, everybody. Welcome to Abundance Portals podcast, weekly podcast. My name is Dea Swishby, and today we have a great topic. But before we do so, let's everybody introduce themselves. You guys have met her before, of course. This is another member of Abundance Portals, and I'm very happy to welcome Tiara. So, Wholeness, Tiara.
Wholeness, everyone. I'm Tiara. I'm a birth doula and herbalist and a part of Abundance Portals. Happy to be here tonight. Excited for this topic.
Wellness, thank you, sisters. Thank you. So my name is Veronica, and we're actually all part of the founding members of Abundance Portal. Sister Tiara is also one of our founding members. And yeah, I'm just happy to be here. You know, I'm a conduit of spiritual energy, mother of two beautiful boys. I have a background in Kundalini yoga and meditation. I'm heavily into breath work and as I've been saying a lot this week, practical practices again. So yeah, just happy to be here. And this is a topic that, again, has come through Sister Widgeby through her own experience, I think this past weekend. And so we thought that this was, well, just something that would be helpful to bring forward into the space through Abundance Portals. So welcome everyone, and thank you for being here and tuning in with us, and you know, just spending the next hour or however long it is that you're going to be with us. So thank you.
Yeah. So Wholeness, thank you, everybody, and welcome Tiara. I guess she's been here before with us. So, so the topic. The topic is actually dear to my heart. So what is it like, you know, we wanted to, I think I put in a guide to go into healthcare professionals, you know, as a conscious person. And the reason why is because I think, you know, in these times and, you know, in understanding the healthcare system and, you know, doctors or even any other matrix, quote unquote, matrix professionals, you know, how do you handle, you know, talking to someone who is not as conscious as you are, or, you know, and some of us, you couldn't even say knowledgeable as you are. And just the whole idea of some information that have come through the conscious community, and then how do you feel about the, you know, the healthcare system, how the hospitals are handling, you know, right now there's an outbreak of COVID, and, you know, at points some of the conscious community had said that this wasn't real. You know, whether or not you thought it was, this isn't the discussion now, but a lot of people, you know, need the healthcare system, and are they finding the help needed? What kind of care, and is the care, like, you know, legitimate even, you know, all of these are questions that comes to mind, you know, that I feel sometimes may hinder someone from going to, you know, from pursuing, you know, healthcare professionals, from going to doctors and so on. So this is, of course, the reason, like, you know, Veronica and I always bring up topics that usually that affect us personally. So this past weekend, I happened to have gone to the hospital twice. I had to go to the ER twice, and it wasn't a pleasant. Both of the experiences were not pleasant experiences. But however, I was very much, you know, very much proud of the healthcare professionals, and really felt, you know, thankful to the care that I received. And then I also felt that they can't do much for me. which was like, you know, in contrast was like, you know, in terms of like the fact that you need, you know, I do feel that you have to take your health into your own hands, you know. However, they, you know, they do provide, you know, a service that's sorely needed, and that is sorely, you know, at times may even be lacking. But, you know, really, as I was looking at them, and I was listening to what was their conversation, I was really moved by their conduct, and, you know, well-deserved praise to the healthcare professional. So with that, I'll open the floor to the other ladies.
Absolutely. Tiara, do you have something that you want to jump in on at the moment? Being a doula and just having your own, I know that your experience has been just not something that I personally have. I don't know anybody that's been through some of the things that you've had to experience through the healthcare system. So I would really, really love to just hear you, touch on it.
Yes, I can speak to the disparities that Black women have in the medical field. Just going the trust the level of trust that's not there, that's not present, and just the issues that we have as Black and brown people going into a hospital environment is not the safest. And I've been able to experience that firsthand in my personal experience and as a professional. Being a birth doula and being a midwife assistant, I've been able to be in a hospital setting where it wasn't safe for us to be there. Of course, I mean, the statistics still show that Black women are 5 times more likely to die or experience complications during childbirth or pregnancy compared to their white counterparts. And that is very real. And I've been able to see it. It's hit home with my family. Of course, my sister gave birth to a daughter who passed away in the hospital as well, same day she was born. So it's hit home for us. We've experienced it, and it is really real. It's a real issue that I feel like needs to have light shed on it. I don't know if you want me to go ahead and continue to speak about it, or if we'll get into it a little bit more.
Absolutely. Sure, go ahead. The nature of of how we conduct the panel is for the most part pretty organic. So please, if you feel called to continue to share, please do.
Well, and I'll share with my personal experience in the hospital setting, giving birth with my second son. It was not conducive to what the childbirth experience that I wanted to achieve. They didn't trust my word. They didn't listen to me. I was unheard. I didn't have anyone there to advocate for me, really. So I had to do that myself in addition to give birth, and that's tough enough. But to have to watch everything that's going on and monitor them as they monitor you, it's a lot. And it was a lot in my case where I went into labor out of town. I was having a home birth. I had that scheduled with a midwife in Los Angeles, and I traveled for a funeral, and I went into labor out of town. And so I went into the hospital where I was, and I'm sorry. It was a horrible experience for me. But I went into that hospital setting, and I was met with hostility when I first got there. They separated me from my mom. Upon arrival, they separated us, which I didn't feel comfortable with that. And I told her prior to getting there, please don't leave me when we get in here. I remember telling her that in the car, don't leave me alone, because I didn't feel comfortable going into the hospital. And we were separated just for a brief time. And I was adamant, I need my mom here before we go any further. And they ended up going back to get her, luckily. And she was able to stay with me until other family members could get there. And with this experience, I was drug tested. I was hotlined. They called the police on me. There was a lot that took place behind the scenes that I was unaware of until I was able to get a hold of my medical records. I gave birth on a Sunday, and I left the hospital Monday evening, because that's how much stress and pressure I was under. I needed to leave. And I thought leaving the hospital was the end of my troubles. And that was truly the very start of them, because that's when, the police got involved, and they were surrounding my parents' home, and DFS was coming out. They were trying to take my baby from me. They didn't succeed, and we were able to get back to Los Angeles, in a couple of months. But it just was, that was an experience that I'm happy that it was me who went through it, because I'm a pretty strong individual and I needed to know what was going on. I was just oblivious to everything that was going on in the medical field with Black women. So I'm glad that I went through that. Not happy for the actual experience, because it is traumatizing. It's very traumatic, even hard for me to speak about it right now. But I needed to go through that in order to find my way and to be able to help other women and advocate for them and teach them to advocate for themselves. And very similar to myself, my sister went through the same thing some years back, where she went into a hospital setting. They never took her word. They didn't believe her. They were comfortable with her being there because she had been in there a while. And just not listening and not being heard. And this was her first pregnancy and her first time giving birth. So she didn't know what to expect either. And her telling them, hey, I feel like something's not right. I feel like this is off. And, oh, no, you're fine. You're fine. You'll be okay. I feel pain. No, it's okay. Just the brush off, which is quite common. And she ended up giving birth, and the baby was in the birth canal for a really long time without oxygen, and she was born and had to be resuscitated. And then that was only enough for her to live maybe 7 hours after. So, there's a pretty big chance of when you go into a hospital setting as a Black woman, you or your baby won't leave alive. And that's a problem for us. And I think that's why a lot of women are going back to the old way, which is midwives, and home births. What was the normal thing for us to do prior to going into the hospitals, when things took a change, when midwives were kind of classified as unclean, and just it wasn't the way to go. So now we're returning to that, which I think is what needs to happen.
Thank you for sharing your story with us. So regarding this, there was one hospital that I went to that, my cousin could go in with me, and I felt, it was like a smaller, and then I needed to go to a bigger hospital, and they would not let my family, my husband was with me, and they were like, no, they wouldn't. So you basically, as a patient, had to go in alone. And I remember just standing there looking at the guy like, okay, I'm about to walk out the door. Like, and it was literally like, okay, I know I need the care. However, just like there's this fear of being alone, and really wanting to be with your loved one, especially when you're not feeling well, that, that I really seriously think should be respected. And not to say that I don't understand, whatever rules that the hospitals have put in place because of COVID. And of course, it's really, it is parallel, I think, because now more people are going to be suffering from what you suffered, giving birth, because that's that, in a way, like I said, a lot of respect and for the healthcare professionals. However, there was some stuff that was definitely lacking, and that created an environment where it wasn't comfortable. It wasn't as comfortable as it could be, and let's put it this way. I think when, because of my mini surgeries, I have experienced, hospital settings and, in healthcare settings where it's much more welcoming, much more like, hey, we're here to help you, versus like, hey, you're this thing that we're just trying to get out of here, or, you know what I mean, or a number type of thing. So, yeah, I really had felt a lot of fear going into, the hospital, like entering actually. One, everybody had masks, so there's this whole thing about not being able to see, people's faces. And that's hey, frankly scary. And not only are they strangers, but you're really not recognizing them as even people. Not to say that, like I said, I've had surgeries before. However, one of the things, usually, like, you already know your doctor, you already spend a lot of time with them. But if you go in for an emergency, it's really, um, I did find it very problematic, for the second hospital. The first hospital, was like, again, my cousin was able to go in with me, but the 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 larger one, it was just like the rules were pretty strict. um, and so that was my experience this weekend. So the for me, like, the question is, really, as we're going into winter, and people are starting to get sick again with, with either COVID or the flu or the colds. And because, let's put it this way, like, if you think about it, like, just getting a cold now might frighten you into thinking that you're sicker than you truly are. Would that stop you from getting the help? That's one of the things, is like, having these kind of experience, does that even stop you from getting, the help that you need, or even pursuing the help that you need?
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. First of all, Tiara, I just want to take a moment to just say thank you, because I'm always so incredibly inspired by your experience. I do know it in detail. I feel privileged to have heard it in detail. And I even learned through your experience, and not to mention, just like the pillar of strength that you are, and the caliber of a mother that you are to the boys. So just thank you for being here, for your presence, and for taking yourself through that so that we can all learn, the do's and the don'ts, and really understand, how the decisions that we make when it doesn't feel right, and somehow we end up in these experiences to really allow for an enormous teaching to come through, and so still having to bring it back to giving thanks for what a teaching that was for you, and how it really shaped who you are in this moment, and all the blessings that you have, and that the boys are happy and healthy, and they have a wise, strong mama to be able to continue to raise them. So just thank you. And I have found myself in situations that have not been to that extreme, but certainly enough to know this was a misalignment for me. This is not where I needed to be. This was me not following my intuition. This was me in my unawareness. And yet, I know that I had to take myself through some of these things in order to learn and continue to understand and continue to sharpen my own discernment, so that I can choose differently next time. And also, just because there's multiple and infinite levels to this. I definitely come from a space where I am today, where what it teaches me is to exercise my discernment, because I'm not going to put myself in the position of not going to a healthcare professional or an emergency room if the situation should call for it at that moment. You know what I mean? So I'm never going to put myself in the position where I'm going to say, where I'm still, again, choosing one side over the other. Because I think that that's the biggest thing to take away from all of this, is that we are presented with certain situations in our life, which, again, we are calling into our space. And when we become aware of that, how are we going to choose to move? How are we going to choose to dance with that? And so, when I gave birth to both of my sons in a hospital setting, it was, for me, what I take away from it, it was a cold unnatural setting. It didn't, you know, looking back, it's like, man, if I knew then what I know now, this is not where I would feel inclined to bring my child into the world, because I started to see only after the fact the traumatic effects of going that route, like really traumatic effects. But because we are so turned off when we are there, when we're making these types of decisions, we're so turned off. It's like we're not even actually fully realizing what is actually taking place and how it is affecting us on a very, very deep level. And for me, you know, I just think that the thing, and again, I didn't have these like extreme situations when it came to giving birth, other than the immense amount of pain when I gave birth to Eric, which was a natural childbirth, because, you know, I almost delivered Eric, who is my 11-year-old, on the side of the 710 freeway here in Long Beach, because I almost didn't make it to the hospital. So there was ambulances that actually were waiting for me at the side of the freeway, but I didn't want to deliver, you know, I didn't want to have him delivered in an ambulance. So I, again, like held it in, which is, again, it was so unnatural because everything in my body was saying, just let him come out. And when I finally, you know, got to the hospital, it was too late to get anything. And that's really the only reason that I actually didn't get an epidural or anything to ease the pain. You know, this wasn't even a decision that I made, like, no, I don't want, you know, being mindful not to have an epidural. That's not where I was at when I was giving birth. But certainly after Eric came, which was a short 20 minutes after I got to the hospital, I think that I know that the most uncomfortable and just bothersome and just unnatural experience that I was having is how harassed I was to vaccine my child. And I was adamant about that in that space. You know, I knew that's where I was with everything. I knew I was not going to vaccinate my child in the hospital. That's just where I was. And it is incredible the amount of backlash that comes with that, with just exercising my right to say no, exercising my human right to say, no, I don't want you to vaccinate my child. And I think that was the moment for me when I realized, should I have a third child, this is not where I'm bringing us. This is not the route. This is not natural. Nothing about this experience felt safe for me. I knew that much. Like I became aware and awake to that in that moment, that it felt cold for me. Now, again, I'm speaking about one experience that I had. This has not been all experiences of the multitude of times that I've been, you know, under Western medicine, Western doctors, hospitals, clinics, and, you know, all of the above. I've had other experiences which have been helpful, which have been conducive to what needed to happen in that point in time. And that's when I realized, like, the scale, you know, that's when I realized that this was all a matter of really sharpening my discernment and understanding all the choices that I make to get me to certain experiences in my life. And this is no different. And so where I'm coming from with this is from what I know, because I've experienced and because I've learned for my personal journey. And it's definitely coming from a space that I feel that I don't want to shy away from having to go to a doctor, or, you know, my mom had emergency surgery a couple months ago, things that essentially are needed sometimes when, you know, you are in this world, things come up. And, you know, if you're not in a certain practice, if you're not in a certain space in your consciousness where, you know, you completely, you don't even, these things aren't even attracted into your field, you know, we're not all in that space. And so unless you're there, you know, you're still kind of having these experiences. I don't want to like polarize anybody's decision making, which ultimately is always for that person alone. But I just feel called to just shed light that we're still talking about the same things in essence. We're still talking about the same things at the root of everything, which is an understanding how this is all there to wake you up, and this is all there to teach you, and this is all there to just for your spiritual stamina, you know what I mean? And to continue to contract and expand and be able to, you know, continue to pass that baton forward from your own experience, especially the traumatic ones. And I feel like when we get into those spaces that have these hints of paranoia about, I don't want to go to hospitals and I don't want to, you know, use any Western medicine, and I don't want to really have anything to do with any type of medical attention that isn't under a holistic and wellness, you know, area, for lack of a better word at the moment, then it's still like, you know, you're still kind of imbalanced in the consciousness, because you really have to be able to weigh the scale and say, there may be a time when it is appropriate for me to do so. And will I know that it is appropriate for me to do so? And there are other times when not. And I think it's just about really understanding what each individual needs in their moments, in these moments, and to not allow the paranoia to steep in so much, or the monkey mind where it's really telling you that there's something there that you need to be afraid of either. You need to be alert, and you need to be aware, and you need to be awake. But to be afraid is something different. And that's what's coming through right now.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Veronica, for sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
I completely agree with you. I think we need to research and just learn how to advocate for ourselves, and not just put all of our trust into the professionals, so to speak.
Yes.
And that gives us the empowerment that we need in order to be able to go into that space and not be fearful, and not, I mean, and obviously I know, you know, if, you know, we have an arm hanging off or something, then we have to go into that space and have surgery or have it sewn back on. But just, I know that I consciously make an effort to be able to treat at home, you know, and that's just what I feel comfortable doing. But you're right, you don't want to polarize it and be in a space where you are fearful at all.
Right. It just seems like, again, because it goes back to the essence of things, and it's what do I need? What does my body need in this moment? Am I in a position where this is urgent? Like the sister had a episode a few days ago where she reached a state where there was an urgency, and she needed to take herself somewhere to get immediate attention. You know what I mean? And that's her practicing her discernment. Like, I need to do this. Now, once she got there, was it very helpful? Apparently not. but point being is that, you know, she was still influencing the energy in the room. You know, they asked her, do you want this then? And she knew what she was doing. You know, she knew when to say yes, and she knew when to say no. And she knew that she was controlling the space and the energy while she was there. So it was, you know, definitely, you know, a different experience. And, you know, she walked away from that with, again, just more awareness and more teachings, and really being able to expand and understand how this is, again, continuing to mold us and to shape us. But it's like, if we need to get the thinking out of the way in these situations in order to allow the innate wisdom to come through.
That's great. To me, like, also what's coming through is the understanding that we need to have about what the hospitals and doctors and
Yeah,
nurses
that too.
and all the healthcare professionals, what they represent.
Yeah.
And so the way to do that is to actually look at the symbol. And it's very important to look at the hospital symbol and don't and move away from the thinking that, oh, they stole this, or that, just say, okay, this is a symbol that represents this group of people. And if you look at the symbol, it's the symbol of the Kundalini moving. It's that consciousness.
And just so you
And
know what she's talking about, it's the snake. Just so you know what symbol you're
I'm
talking
sorry.
about.
Okay, so depending on, so if you ever see the hospital, symbol, it's usually like a stick and then a snake or two snakes twirling around the stick. And the stick is representative of your spinal cord, and the two snake is this energy that's representing your left and right side. So so always think that we have right eye, right nose, and so the energy moves on your left side and your right side, and then they crisscross like this, and that's what you see as the hospital symbol. And this energy usually comes down from below, from your lower back and up, from the sexual energy, I should say, up the spine, to your brain, just in the physical level. And so this is the symbol that represents all the hospitals, all of the doctors and nurses. And so when whatever kind of treatment that you're receiving is sort of like telling what this energy is doing. And a lot of times, like, if we think we go to emergency rooms for trauma, it's a traumatic event. It's something that, like an emergency, and, it's meaning like this energy is rising fast, and it's, and it's, and it's the danger. It can be a dangerous energy, and there's ways to control it, minimize it, but if it's gonna come up. so so in a way, that was one of the things that I take away from being in hospital settings, because what I found, and I've talked about this, is like whenever I'm in my physical always precede my spiritual, like whatever's going on with me physically is also gonna happen to me spiritually, or vice versa, whichever. So I didn't take the moment or the weekend, and I knew the energies were high. I didn't take it for granted at all, even though I was going through this, and I was really like looking and paying attention to what was happening, even within the moment of like trying to make sure that I kept myself in control of the situation, and again, we are each born with certain challenges, and like I happen to be born with a genetic disease, so it's not something that I can help much. It's like it's one of those things that you basically you take care of, but it's not something that you can solve easily. And these kind of debilitations are, again, if you can master them, they can become your strength. For every weakness, it gives you a strength somewhere else. So that's how, so when I was like in this situation, because I remember even waking my doctor, because I have a doctor that I've been following, I think, for the past 7 years. So, and then, so, waking him up, and he's like, well, if you need it, you need it. That was his answer to me. And of course, I trust him. It was 3:00 in the morning. I'm calling the poor man. But just saying, like, in terms of, this traumatic, like, if you listen to Tiara's story, like, about her, giving birth, and, like even Veronica's story, for as much as it wasn't as traumatic as Tiara's, there was still, some pressure there. And I won't tell you how many surgeries I had. So, but, like, my trips to the hospitals have always been like, something, even for me, like, giving birth to Bradley was, I remember telling the doctor, I want to have a natural birth. And he said, well, you can walk out the hospital, like, So, sometimes our healthcare can sort of be held as hostage. If you're, think about like if you're in a setting, that this person can want to put their power over you, to say like, if you don't, I remember being at the dentist and I didn't want to do something, and the lady was like, literally was the dentist herself. It was like, well, I said so. And I looked at her, I'm like, you're not God. I am. I looked at her, I said that. But in terms of like, this is because a lot of things that people face, when dealing with the healthcare system, again, which is representative of this massive energy that we are, and how it deals with us and how we deal with it, you know, and think about like so many people now who are dealing with health issues. And, I really, for me, this is all the way the energy is moving. And, it is a traumatic event for all of us, um, Veronica's grandmother just passed. My father passed a few months ago. Like we've all had people in our lives that, I think not too long ago, a member of Tiara's family also passed. This year has been one of those years where we've dealt with sickness and with death. And, for me, all of these have made me stronger. However, I've still had to deal with them and be faced with certain situations where it's like, oh, wow, like this is tough, this is tough.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm glad that you came back from the hospital. Nothing too crazy happened, but certainly like it's important to also take preventative measures, you know what I mean? It's just yes, some of us have like these some of us are born with things, just like the sister said, where I have to take care of it in my own way, and I still have to deal with it. Completely understandable. I get that. I can completely appreciate that, you know what I mean? But it's like the more we also take care of ourselves and the other aspects of ourselves, the less we'll have to find ourselves in the situations where then we have to make that decision, and then that decision is I gotta go, which is essentially what happened to my mother, and hey, if it happened, it's because it needed to. And she really found herself in a situation where she wasn't really understanding that there's extreme blockage and trauma in the body, and a lot of just not wanting to tap in, or not ready, you know what I mean? Just like not ready, not really believing that these, if you don't take care of it, what happens, you know what I mean? If you don't take care of something and just address it and embrace it, it just gets louder, it just gets bigger, it just gets more painful. And then, 2-3 months later, she's being rushed to the emergency room, where, although from her experience, she said, it was a lot of beautiful attention, yet, the negative aspect of that, I would say, is because of COVID. She was alone in there for a week. Her husband, my dad, wasn't able to come, her kids weren't able to come, and it was limited communication. And so there was a point where, we were worried, because we weren't really understanding what was happening or how she was, and it was a pretty extreme surgery. And so, just give thanks that everything came through and she came home healthy, about a week later. But it's just, it's one of those things when if you have to go, you have to go. But I personally always feel more attracted to the holistic route, to the natural route. I always feel more at home when I'm really understanding the body, really understanding, or just being able to have these conversations, like me and the sister will be on the phone quite a bit, while we're just doing our thing, you know, and we're talking about these things, and we're talking about, well, I'm feeling this in the body, and where is this coming from, and what chakra is talking to me right now, what organ is talking to me right now. And so I definitely always personally feel more called to really tune into the body, because it's really like the body that's leading me at this point. And more and more and more as I continue to strengthen my connection with it. So I just to say that, you know, I agree with you, Tiara, that for where you are is so to speak where I am at too. You know, I want the natural route, and to just be able to take care of, you know, the vessel in the best way possible. And that happens through, as you said, being able to do my research and really empower myself as to, you know, I'm not going to give my power away to the external. You know what I mean? This is in my hands. This is in my hands, like literally. So just giving thanks.
Absolutely. I will say, as far as COVID, it has made a lot of changes. When my grandfather passed away this summer, we were at odds because some wanted him to be in the hospital because they felt like that was the best thing for him and they could give him treatment there. And then the other ones of us wanted him to be at home comfortably with people who love him, who he knows, because you can't go in there. You know, it was absolutely no one was allowed in there with him.
Yeah.
And that was a very tough decision. So I feel like with COVID, it has shaped the way that some people feel about it. It's a fear. It's an unknown. It's just, we don't know what'll happen. You just don't know. So you either put yourself in the position to find out, or you just deal with it however else you can. And it's impacted my work a lot, my birth doula work, because giving birth, initially they were making women give birth alone, you know, with no one there. And then they started to allow one support person, and naturally that's people's partner or their significant other over their doula. So you can do all the work right up until, and then you're not allowed in. So then it was where, you know, the disparities that we were already facing were completely exacerbated, because now they don't have anyone in there watching them as closely. You know, they can do whatever they want to do. So I think it's just a fine line. And like you said, just using our discernment and what feels comfortable to us, you know, to know which route to go. But I know there's been several things that have truly impacted people's decisions. And, you know, if they even want to deal with a hospital setting at the state that we're in right now.
Seriously, I couldn't imagine giving birth, you know. I'm shaking my head because it's you so, I mean, because not only have I been, you know, support person for, you know, for my aunt giving birth, you know, I've given birth, and I know, like, you just need somebody, like, you just need your family, you know.
Yeah, so it's been tough. I mean, they're slowly making changes as new information comes out, but not quick enough for me. You know, should I say not fast enough for me to feel comfortable with the situation. So I think just everything has impacted people actually wanting to go in a hospital setting and trusting it.
My thing is that I think that the whole situation has just hindered people wanting to go to the hospital. And, you know, because just thinking about, like, how I felt, like, I really, it had to be like, well, I need to go to the hospital to, you know, and that's seriously like how I felt. And again, like, when I got there, you know, the first hospital was fine. The second one was just like no visitors at all. And that's, you know, when you're sick, that's when you need somebody to take care of you. And you know, one of the things that the hospital, they were short staffed as well, you know. So you're talking about longer waits, and of course the smell in there. Like, if they were disinfecting before now, I don't know what the hell they're doing because the smell was so strong.
Hmm.
And like I said, and everybody wearing everything, like they look everybody looks so alien. Not to say there's anything wrong with being alien. It's just different. Meaning like you're not comforted, that comfort of really seeing somebody's warm face and so on and smile, so
It's not a
uh,
personable experience anymore. It just completely alienates us. I don't feel comfortable in public with people with masks on and not being able to see. I don't know. It just makes it like it's a dehumanizing experience for me. I don't feel comfortable with my children in masks at all, so their outings are very limited. Um, or I'll let them go out, but just going into places has changed. This affected a lot of things. But I'm glad you said, you felt like you needed to go to the hospital. You were prompted to do that. You had that urge. And I feel like that's what we need to do. Just instinctively, you knew you needed to go. And then when you got there, you knew, okay, this isn't it. Let me go do something else. So I feel like if people can just follow those prompts, you can be led and guided to what the experience should be for you. And you keep control in that way.
yes.
Aho, sister, 100%. Yeah, it's just a matter of, again, just continuing to sharpen the discernment and, not polarizing the situation, not looking at it as like, no, that's not what I don't want to go based out of fear. You know what I mean? Because again, that's blocking your intuition right off the bat. Right off the bat, that's gonna block our intuition. So it is just continuing to, again, exercise, how we're going to continue to dance with the energy. And as long as you're always just dialing in, really just dialing in and saying, what is it that I'm being called to do? Where is it that I'm being called to be? And just be present and know, again, that you're safe and you're supported. Wherever you go, you're safe and you're supported, and dial into that energy, dial into that knowing, and give yourself that experience wherever you go.
And also research. like this is
do your due diligence for sure.
Yes. So just so you know, when whatever medication they were giving me, my Google was right there. And actually, funny enough, Dominic had sent us Google Scholar, where you can actually. I was actually, funny enough, using Google Scholar, where whatever medication that I was given, the IV, I looked it up, and because and again, that's why I was able to say yes, no, and I wait for this or that. And but yeah, so in terms of like, what did I want to put in my body, like I knew that was the thing as well, because I was educated with my illness. Or quote unquote, I shouldn't even call it illness, because that's just the way I am. And as a matter of fact, one of the best thing about my genetic disease, like, because if you have it's actually, my body has adapted to it. And it's one of those things, so that there's certain things that like if you expected to, you wouldn't see in me, because my body's like compensate very well. So that was one of the things as well. So I knew what was needed. I had, again, my specialist, and was able to talk to him, and just being able to just in terms of like always educate yourself in what is it, like what you have. And even like when I got home, I looked at the blood test, and I was reading, like and also like what you do is like you'll go through each result and say, like what's normal, what's abnormal, what does that mean. You can always compare to your previous results. I did that. I've actually because it's important so that you know, okay, you know, like one of them is like, I just need more vitamin C. So yes, I'm drinking more vitamin C this week. And you know, because sometimes that's all that's needed, you know, in terms of like, think about it, like it was one of the things as well, it was raining all week. um so you know, there's like, you know, a lot of people are going to be not have a lot of vitamin D. So in terms of you know, what is needed, and you know, what's needed for me, you know, I really was like looking it up. Google Scholars, there you can do, you know, Google Scholars more like scientific based, but you know, if you can also get as much information from Google as well, if you're not into reading some of the research paperwork. um you know, but you know, I really do believe in solid education, in a scientific solid education, not just like, you know, just saying, okay, holistic this, holistic that, you know, and I do that too. However, you know, I will read, you know, the scientific research papers, because everything is everything. So all the knowledge is solid knowledge. So, you know, especially again, you know, with me, or with a lot of the things, if you know my story with womb healing. The reason I got into womb healing is because, you know, I've had a history of fibroids and a history of my womb. So all of the illnesses that I've had, I always look at them as my training field to educate myself, to heal myself, so that I can help others. Um, and that means that I need to know what my blood count is, and what the CDL mean, and what, so I do take it that seriously, in terms of knowing, like, how I feel, when I feel good, and for comparing also to my past events, so that I know, like, when is that borderline happening. um, I can tell you, like, for me, there's certain, my blood count would probably knock people out already, like, so, but again, like, my body has adjusted. So in terms of like understanding, like, how much power this vessel has, um, and has compensated, and is fine, and it runs very well. I do, because again, it has to adapt, and it, probably makes me immune. Again, that's one of the things that you'll find with some of these genetic diseases, makes you immune to certain other diseases. So I'm like, for, it's like always, you're grateful for some certain things, you know.
So just to add to that a little bit, I agree with everything you're saying. Once you've done the research, know that it's okay to speak up.
Yes.
I think a lot of people feel uncomfortable speaking up because, well, I'll speak to myself. I shrank a bit because I wasn't a professional. I didn't have a medical degree, and I didn't go to school for all these years, but we know what's good for us. We know what feels right to us. Mm-hmm. And I think you can go off of that, and it's okay to speak up and to say, no, I'm not comfortable with that, or no, that won't work for me. And I think once once you do your research, you can make informed decisions. And that's what I teach a lot of my clients, that, I can give you the information, or I can tell you where to look for, but just teaching them to advocate on their own behalf, and to let your voice be heard. You can speak up and say, I don't want any of this. And that, in my case, that is what I did. I knew that I could refuse everything, and I did just that. I refused every single thing that was offered to me. They didn't give me so much as a Tylenol, or, once they put the baby on my chest. In my case, when I was there, that was it. They never got them back. They didn't shoot them up with anything, no vaccines, no eye ointment, no nothing. And of course, like what Veronica said, I didn't share it with you guys, but you get so much pushback for that. And it's like, oh, your baby's going to die, and you're going, and they use the fear factor thing, whatever they can to get you to conform to what it is they want you to do. But just know your rights, know your research, know what you need to be looking for, advocate for yourself, and then just speak up.
Thank you for that. Yeah, that pushback is a real thing. And I could not believe what I was experiencing in that moment. I was naive, for lack of a better word. And I could see how many women in that position would be frightened to speak up, or would give the power away, and end up making some sort of decision that they would have to take themselves through the process of hopefully not regretting, but learning from, essentially. But it is, it's a real thing, and definitely speak up, because those are things that you can't take back. And those are moments that really truly shape you. They really, really shape you. So absolutely, thank you for bringing that forward. It's so important. And I'm so glad that I did speak up when I was in that position. And it was very uncomfortable. Like, don't get me wrong. It was very uncomfortable to speak up and say, no, I do not want vaccines for my child. I want my child to stay with me. And the amount of pushback that I got was just on another level. And that's when I knew that I was doing the correct thing for me, But for sure, I was afraid. I was afraid to speak up, but I'm so glad that I did anyway.
Yeah, we had a conversation last year, Tiara and I, regarding birth and stuff like that. I think it's it's recorded and everything, but I wish I knew when Brad was born, like, a lot of this stuff, and because there were so many things that I agreed to that, again, you didn't need to agree to, that there's no need for me to regret anything, because it is what it is. However, knowing what I know now, I would have definitely made a more informed decision, even if it was the same decision, but at least I would have been more aware of the totality of what I was doing and the decision that I was making. Again, he's fine. However, yeah, there was a lot of pressure, and I remember wanting, and of course, it's not just the hospital that give you pressure; your family give you pressure as well. But wanting the baby with me was, like, number one thing, and actually, because they also tagged the baby, and I remember, like, the baby was with me most of the time, and then the alarm rang. And it was like they were literally panic looking for the child, and I'm like, why are you guys, like, and a bunch of people rushed into the room like I stole the baby. I was looking at them like, that's mine. And I think they were like, no, and so in a way, you sort of, like, become you have to understand, like, a lot of the stuff that you're doing as a parent when you give birth. And again, the knowledge, I think, is very important, so that you don't give your power and your child's power away, unknowingly, and dumb does not excuse you. So so educate yourself.
Educate yourself, do your research, because it's there. You know what I mean? I mean, it's definitely there for you. So.
And I want to add, I have a 15-year-old as well, and I vaccinated him, and I got him eye ointment, and we did the, what is it, where they put the ring on there? Circumcision. I did everything that they asked me to do. I was that yes parent. Okay, yeah. Okay. You guys know, you're the professionals. I did everything. He was vaccinated, I think, until he may have been 8 or 9. And it was when I became a different person and I got knowledge myself. And when you know better, you do better.
There you go.
And it was over from that moment. And it just took for me to read ingredients out loud to his pediatrician. And I'm like, we don't even eat these things. There's no way. And I joked with the pediatrician. I'm like, do you have a vegan version of this? And I mean, we laughed about it, but in all seriousness, it took for me to just read, and then ask myself, was it necessary? And I think when you ask, and this is in any situation, just not in childbirth, you ask, is it necessary? Because a lot of times they'll tell you, no, it's not necessary, but it's preventative, or it's, we would like to be proactive instead of reactive. But who's to say that you would even need it? So of course you'll get in there and they'll try to run the bill up a bit with the insurance or whatever it is. But I just think when I speak to my parents now, my moms now, I don't, wherever they are, I meet people where they are. And I know that was once my journey, and now I'm on a different path. And I just live by, the journey stays flexible. The destination is the same. And when I talk to them, it's with empathy and just with respect. I respect where they are. I respect where they're coming from. I just give them the information I have, and I still allow them to make their decision. And I assure them, whatever decision you make, it's okay. You can always undo it. I vaccinated Tyler. I give him cilantro tincture now. It's cleared his body of the heavy metals and the toxins that we put in there. You can reverse it. I got Tyler a birth certificate and a social security number. I didn't know any better. I didn't do it with Zane. You change when you get the knowledge, and it's okay. So whatever path you've been on, it's okay to switch it up, or it's okay to be on that path because maybe that's where you need to be. And then whatever happens when it switches over, that's fine too. So I just said that so it didn't seem like, don't do this or don't do that. Whatever you choose, that's the best choice that you made in that moment for you. And that's okay. And that's it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Whatever moment, whatever choice you make in any given moment is what's right for you. And it is always for your growth. Always.
Yeah, I hold to all of that. Yeah, that was where you're at, and that was the right decision. And that's again, like I said, there's no need for regret. It just is. And when Tiara says, when you know better, you do better. And the know better goes like this: how to treat yourself. How do you take care? How do you take care of yourself? So that's going to be my ending question of the night. In terms of like healthcare wise, so that some of these trips won't be, necessary, or as necessary. So how, especially with winter coming, So I'm gonna start with Tiara first. Like, how are you handling your healthcare for the coming winter?
Sorry, I was muted there. I do elderberry, a lot of elderberry with my children. We do echinacea. So a lot of preventative. We do broths and soups and fire ciders, just different herbs that I feel like will boost their immunity. Vitamin C, of course, so it's like if we can stay healthy and we can keep our immune systems pretty strong, we don't have to worry about the winter. And so I try to just incorporate that in everyday life. I try to get them up and moving, and you keep moving, things stop moving when they're broken. So just keep moving. We exercise, we get out, we run, we play. The weather's been pretty nice where we are right now. So they've been able to enjoy outdoors. So lots of playing, lots of laughing, and elderberry.
Elderberry, yeah, that too.
What about you, Veronica? What are you doing to prepare for the winter?
Yeah, it's, I think I just continue to do what I've been doing. I haven't been sick in years. I haven't had to go to an actual, doctor in, I don't even remember the last time, honestly. So, and I've always been like that. I've always been the person in my family that never really got sick. So I was just lucky like that. But, the Hydrolex, the hydrogenated water, staying on top of that, the Shilajit, staying on top of that, the multivitamin by Mary Ruth, love that. The liquid form, love that. So easy every day. I mean, it's just the lifestyle, just continuing with the lifestyle, just cultivating the lifestyle that I need so that again, I'm just doing the work, just that's just part of just doing the work. And that keeps me out of, because I don't have any real ailments, you know what I mean? So it's always a mental thing for me. And breath work, just every day I do sit down every day and I start my day out with breath work, with 30 minutes of breath work. And that's been working for me, and that's what I'm going to continue to do.
So to answer my own question, it's a combination. As Tiara is talking, I'm like, okay, yeah, I have that, and then as Sister Veronica is talking, I'm like, I have that. Yes. So it is a combination of making sure that your lifestyle, So yeah, I have the Hydrolux right there. Shilajit, making sure like your body has some minerals. Lugol's 2% iodine. It's like, going for some of the minerals that our body doesn't have. So, especially as I enter my 40s, I'm going deep into my 40s. So iodine, like you just put it on a lot of things like that are like ingested by the skin, so magnesium and Lugol's iodine are like, the separate things that I make sure that I, that I rub on the skin so that I get these specific minerals, because again, sometimes they're not found in foods, and that's one of the things, that's some of the battles that the body has. And like before, we used to be able to grow our own food, and the food was rich in minerals, and now a lot of the food isn't. So you have to pay special attention that you are getting some of those minerals that is not readily like accessible to the body. So, making sure like, you're getting, and yes, I have, Mary Ruth has like, if you buy the package of the vitamins, it comes with elderberry, vitamin D, right, vitamin D, the probiotic, as well as, the mineral and the multivitamin there. So that's excellent, because, that's like a complete set of things that you need. And it's also very friendly. I've had weight loss surgery, so I have absorption problems, and so that vitamin is like really friendly to that condition. And so just understanding that, like, what works for you, and making sure that you're prepared, so that it's not about me getting sick. It's literally like I'm preparing for a winter where I'm healthy, as I've been for the last few winters, because of the lifestyle. Maintaining the lifestyle just gets you're just healthy, physically, mentally, spiritually healthy, and that's again goes to lifestyle, not just a one-time thing. So yeah.
Well, thank you, sis.
Yeah. So I wanted to thank Tiara for jumping in. She's our resident doula, so you'll see us we'll see you guys next week for our regular podcast, and we're like really excited. We've been very good with keeping these on the regular. We've also been doing a couple of IG lives a couple of times a week. Wish IG could be incorporated into this. We tried today, but it's a little bit difficult.
We'll get it.
We're trying to reach. Yeah. So, but we wanted to say wholeness to everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. Wholeness.
Wholeness.
Thank you.